Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale. Swayam Rūpaha Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rūpam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajeevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitansha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gordashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyev Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome to the class. We are studying Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu, right? And we're going to start a new chapter today. Chapter 2, the first stages of devotion, right? The first stages of devotion. If you remember, from this chapter onwards, Śrīla Gosvāmī is going to begin the description of sadhana bhakti. Tells how does sadhana bhakti begin, right? And then he explains the definition of sadhana bhakti. By the way, just checking with you all, did I send the PDF for chapter 1 in the group? Not yet, right?
No, Prabhuji.
I had sent for introduction, isn't it? But not for chapter 1. Okay, I'll do it after the class today. Did you get the quiz? Yes, you got the quiz.
Yes,
Quiz
Prabhuji.
quiz you got, yeah? First quiz.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, fine. Fine, all right. So let me share that with you. First stages of devotion. Śrīla Prabhupada kind of reiterates what he already explained in the previous chapter, in the beginning of this chapter. What did we discuss about in the previous chapter? Chapter 1.
Characteristics of pure devotion. Sorry.
Very good. 6 of them, right? Anyone remembers what are those 6?
Kleshagni.
Very good.
Sudharva. Shubhada.
Shubhada, yeah, Shubhada. And
Transcendental pleasure, which was the third, but it is fifth.
Sandrananda Visheshatma.
Moksha love. Yeah. Liberation. No desire for liberation.
Moksha Laguta Krit.
Moksha laguta. Yeah.
Krishna Akarshana.
Attraction for Krishna.
That's the last one.
Yeah, that word, Sanskrit.
Hmm?
Krishna.
Sanskrit one. Moksha Lagutakrit, and then Sudurlabha, very rare to achieve. And then there is Sandrananda Visheshatma, pleasure, extreme pleasure. And finally, Sri Krishna Akarshani, it attracts Lord Sri Krishna. Not very difficult. You should be memorizing these qualities or characteristics. If not Sanskrit, at least in English. Mhm. So that's what we discussed in the chapter 1. Right? This slide shows what we discussed. Isn't it? Kleshagni Shubhata is for sadhana bhakti, moksha labhuta krit and sudurlabha is for bhava bhakti, and sandrananda visheshatma and Shri Krishna akarshani is for prema bhakti. Makes sense, yes? Now let's read a bit from the book. The first stages of devotion. The three categories of devotional service which Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī describes in Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu are listed as devotional service in practice, which is known as sadhana bhakti, devotional service in ecstasy, which is known as bhava bhakti, and devotional service in pure love of God, which is known as prema bhakti. There are many subheadings in each of these categories. Generally, it is understood that in the category of devotional service in practice, there are two different qualities, which we already showed on the screen. Devotional service in ecstasy has 4 qualities, and devotional service in pure love of God, it has 6 qualities, right? These qualities will be explained by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī later on. More in this connection. Now, what does Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī begin to describe here is, please try to understand. We discussed earlier, there is something known as Samanya Bhakti or general devotional service. General devotional service is obtained because of some piety someone has done in the previous life. However, general devotional service is not same as sadhana bhakti, isn't it? Because general devotional service means maybe some percentage of bhakti in the heart, which means that person is a theist, maybe a believer of God. That's all, finish. That person goes to the temple, to the church, to the mosque, finish. That person gives some money for, charitable works or religious purposes, finish. But then the discipline that is required in sadhana bhakti is something which is very difficult to uh, come to. So many people, if you see, they like Krishna bhakti, but if you tell them every day you have to chant 16 rounds, follow 4 negative principles, only eat prasadam, they're like, we cannot follow such strict rules. Now, to put yourself in that rigor that I will every day follow these rules requires some kind of blessing of Krishna. It requires some kind of grace of the parampara, without which it's not possible. You might have heard some of the lectures of Prabhupada where Prabhupada says that spiritual life requires spiritual strength, and that spiritual strength comes from Balaramji. Now, what is that spiritual strength? That spiritual strength is, despite all odds, despite the strong current of the age of Kali, despite all the nonsensical activities, materialistic activities going around you, you still keep on the determination to everyday chant 16 rounds, to everyday follow the sadhana. It's not an easy thing, right? Isn't it? So here Srila Rupa Goswami is going to explain what makes one qualified to come to the stage of sadhana bhakti. Getting it? What qualifies one for sadhana? What makes one eligible for sadhana bhakti? That's what he's going to begin to describe. So So he's very systematically presenting the subject matter. You see, first he described ordinary devotional service. Then he's describing how someone can come to sadhana bhakti. Then he'll describe the definition of sadhana bhakti. Then he'll tell what does one have to do in sadhana bhakti. Then he says sadhana bhakti is of two types, Vaidhi sadhana and Raganuga sadhana. So what is Vaidhi sadhana? Then from Vaidhi sadhana, how one will go to Raganuga sadhana. What is Raganuga sadhana? Then from Raganuga sadhana, how one will go to Bhava Bhakti. What is Bhava Bhakti? Then from Bhava Bhakti, how will one go to Prema Bhakti? What is Prema Bhakti? Very systematically, by step, he explains the whole subject matter. Now, let me ask you a question. Where is another book like that on the planet? There is no other book like that. Even Bhagavatam does not give you those step-by-step explanations. It's all scattered. Gita also does not do that. No other book does that. So this is the beauty of the scripture, that this scripture is presenting a subject matter in a way which no other scripture does. Okay, so that's how the scripture is very, very special, very important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. That's what it says. It describes the science of pure devotional service. Yes. So qualification for practicing devotional service. What is that qualification? Let's discuss that a bit. Hmm? What is that qualification? So we'll read first this paragraph. Yes, let's read in this connection. Madhumati Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam to you. In this connection, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī suggests that the person eligible for Krishna consciousness or devotional service can be classified by his particular taste. He says that devotional service is a continual process from one's previous life. No one can take to devotional service unless he has had some previous connections with it. For example, suppose in this life I practice devotional service to some extent. Even though it is not 100% performed, whatever I have done will not be lost. In my next life, from the very point where I stop in this life, I shall begin again. In this way, there is always a continuity. But even if there is no continuity, if only by chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted and can advance in devotional service. Anyway, for person who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier than for those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative process. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So now how does it begin? Can you make out from this paragraph? Prabhupada says, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī suggests that the person eligible for Krishna Bhakti or Krishna consciousness can be classified by his particular taste. He says that devotional service is a continual process from one's previous life, which means Rūpa Gosvāmī is basically saying you are doing bhakti now because you have done bhakti in the past. And why you are doing bhakti? So he says by his particular taste, which means you have an inclination or attraction for devotional service. That's why you're doing bhakti now. Getting it? Recently, one devotee was telling me that that person visited the temple with another person. Fine. So this person is inclined towards devotional service. He's a devotee, and the other person is not interested in bhakti. So when that person saw a devotee boy distributing Prabhupada books, so that person commented, "Look at his face. He looks so frustrated. How can he be happy?" It's his face shows that he's doing all this distribution of books and this chanting and all this without any interest, he's just wasting his time. What is this bhakti? This is all useless. So those comments show what? This person has no taste for bhakti, no inclination, no appreciation. Can such a person become a devotee? Yes, but not on his own. That person will become a devotee not because he has a taste. That person will become a devotee if some pure devotee or some devotee gives some blessings. But on his own, no. Rupa Goswami is saying, but if you have taste from your previous life, then you will naturally take to bhakti. Then you will not get these kinds of thoughts in your mind, right? So this is one thing. How I come to bhakti? Because of some previous connection. And what is the verse in reference to that? Neha vikramanashosti pratyavayana vidyate swapamisya dharmasya trayate mahato bhaya 2.40 Bhagavad Gita, right? You have forgotten that verse? We did memorize it, remember? First unit Bhagavad Gita, right? So then it is said that it is in this way there is always a continuity. But even if there is no continuity, let's say in the case of this fellow, there's no continuity. This person's comments show that there's no bhakti from the past. That's why that person can speak like that. If only by a chance a person takes interest in a pure devotee's instruction, he can be accepted. Got it? So bhakti begins because you have done bhakti in the past. Now, why it begins? Because you have some attraction towards bhakti. But how does that attraction develop in the first hand? That attraction develops in the first hand because of hearing the instruction of a pure devotee or getting the mercy of a pure devotee. Isn't it? So devotional service, when we are talking about devotional service, we are talking about pure devotional service, the practice of pure devotional service. It begins when we receive a devotee's causeless mercy. By this causeless mercy, what happens? We may unknowingly execute bhakti, and that is known as agyat sukruti. This agyat sukruti leads to slight attraction towards bhakti. And that slight attraction towards bhakti brings one to sadhana. As one comes to sadhana bhakti, that attraction keeps on increasing. The mercy of the Lord and Vaishnavas keep on increasing. Then I get more and more committed to sadhana. We should know commitment to sadhana bhakti also comes as a grace of Vaishnavas and Bhagavan. Like I come to know in a class, I should be chanting 16 rounds. So the commitment to chant 16 rounds comes through the blessings of Vaishnavas and the Supreme Lord. So then one gets committed to it. So this then happens over a span of many, many lifetimes. And this way, the person's heart becomes very attracted to Krishna consciousness. Anytime then that person gets a chance in any life to do devotional service, that person will immediately take it up. Understand? Yes. Now, our qualification for what level of sadhana bhakti we will be executing depends on how much taste we have for Krishna consciousness. To give you an example, some people join the movement and they're so sluggish. They take years and years to come to 16 rounds. I know such people. I mean, they got in contact with iskcon and they took maybe 20 years to just come 16 rounds. They are, on and off. They'll come, they'll disappear. Again, they'll come, they'll disappear. They know everything. They know everything, what should be done, what should not be done. But somehow that it takes a long time. Why? Because the taste is very small. Attraction is very, very small. And some people, it's like, dry grass catching fire. As soon as they come to Krishna consciousness, oh, they are just jumping up with joy. Like, yes, in this one life, I want to become a pure devotee of Krishna. Right? Bubbling with joy. You'll see immediately head shaven up, chanting 16 rounds, kantimala around the neck, fresh tilak on the face, bright face, reading books, distributing books, completely transformed in just few days. which means what? That person was carrying a lot from the previous lives, a lot of taste for bhakti. Right? Isn't it? So this all happens because of these factors which we discussed. But then something more interesting Prabhupada mentions here. What is that? Anyway, for persons who have a natural taste for understanding books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is easier than for those who are simply accustomed to mental speculation and argumentative processes. So this is something more very important again to understand. What is that? That he's saying one thing is luck or chance, or you can say even grace or fortune that you come to bhakti. But the other thing is someone who wants to do it in a scientific manner. So that person who does it in a scientific manner means someone who is interested in understanding what is Gita, what is Bhagavatam, what is Bhakti. For such people, the process works faster. And the process also becomes easier. Then for those who are like, okay, I'm in Bhakti now, I got the mercy of Krishna, I'm chanting 16 rounds, following four regular principles. I've been doing it for many years now. Yes, I'll go to Vrindavan once in a year. Yes, I'll go to temple on Janmashtami. Yes, I'll chant Hare Krishna sometimes more than 16 rounds. But I have no time to study books. I have no time to hear lectures. I have no time to understand what is Krishna consciousness. When there's kirtan, sometimes I dance. I like to eat prasadam. I like to socialize within the Krishna consciousness society. But then studying, understanding, philosophy, that's not my cup of tea. For such people, process will become very slow and also difficult because they don't understand the science. Right? Okay. Yes. So let me share the qualification for sadhana. So you understand this diagram. How does bhakti begin? Because of attraction for bhakti. But why do I have attraction for bhakti? Because I have done bhakti in the past. It's like a, you know, two-way cycle, correct? Cyclic, you can say, cause and effect. Execution of bhakti will lead to attraction of bhakti. Attraction for bhakti will lead to more execution of bhakti. Isn't it? Correct? Hmm? So now, how do you develop that attraction for bhakti? Or how do I get a chance to execute bhakti? Because of how will it start in the first place? Because of
Mercy devotees.
Mercy
causeless
of
mercy.
See of the devotee.
As your devotee, causeless mercy. If I get more and more mercy, what will happen?
More and more attraction.
Very good. And more attraction means
more and more deeper than sadhana bhakti.
very good. And if I commit Vaishnava Aparadh, what will happen?
I'll fall down.
What does that fall down mean?
Sadhana bhakti will reduce.
Why?
No mercy.
No, because when there is Vaishnava Aparadh, the attraction for bhakti will reduce.
Okay.
And when attraction for bhakti will reduce, the sadhana will also reduce. Execution of bhakti will also reduce. Am I understanding right? More mercy, more attraction, more execution. Aparadh, lesser attraction, lesser execution.
Prabhuji, I have a question here. Can we ask later or can we now?
Enough? No.
Prabhuji, we were talking about the bhakti and aparad. If someone is doing aparad and we are not part of it, but still we are watching and we know what is happening. And in our consciousness, it's stick that this is what is happening and I am just part of it or not part of it, but it's coming to me and it is definitely impacting my
Someone else is
sadhana.
doing aparad, then that's a different thing. If you can't do anything about it, then
But
don't
it is
bother.
sticking in my mind, Prabhuji. What
So
should
then
we,
throw
how
it
can
out.
ignore it?
Ignore it. No, learn to ignore. We have to learn to
Okay,
ignore so many things.
got it, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
We have to learn, right or not? There are so many things in life which you have to learn to ignore,
Yeah, totally
isn't
agree.
it?
Absolutely right.
Like you're working in a company. So many people are doing so many nonsensical things in the company. But what do? I have to mind my own business.
Right.
You do that, right?
Yeah,
Similarly, even if you are in a Vaishnava society and you know that some people are doing something, mind your own business now.
right.
So that's something which we have to anyway learn to do. Otherwise, we'll just get crazy, isn't it?
It is, that's what it is impacting the sadhana sometimes and said, oh, this is not
Yeah,
right.
so that's why you have to learn to neglect. So, this also is the nature of someone actually. I'm not pointing out to you, but I've come to realize that some people now they very easily get affected by the environment. You're getting it? They get very
Yes,
easily
Prabhuji.
affected by the environment. And this is a very dangerous thing for oneself. If you are like that, you are a very vulnerable person. Vulnerable means anything and everything will start affecting you. So if one is of that nature, one should try to change that or come out of that. Because that is not good for one's spiritual life. That's a distraction.
It is a distraction big time. It is impacting big time in that way.
Yeah, and this kind of vulnerability is also because of, uh, let me honestly say, it's because of not having detachment sufficiently. This kind of vulnerability is because we are too attached to having our environment the way we like it or the way we want. And because it's not the way we want it, we're constantly thinking about it.
Right.
You're getting it?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji.
Now, if you get used to living in an environment which is not the way you like it, but just because you have accepted it, key what to do. So what will happen is then that environment will not affect your state of mind, isn't it? Because you have anyway accepted it.
Yeah. It's the way of accepting how to ignore it, something like that.
Yeah. So, I'll give you a very graphic and very, I mean, you can say practical example. If you have traveled in Indian trains,
Right.
not the good ones, the bad ones, where everything is bad, right? And you don't have a seat and you have to stand near the toilet, and the toilet is stinking. What do you have to do? Either you go away from there, and if you can't go away from there, what you have to do? You have to just learn to
Bear it.
ignore that smell,
Ignore it. Yeah.
isn't it?
True.
Correct. So similarly, sometimes you have to just ignore. But if
Very
you can't
practical
do it,
example, Prabhuji.
if
Very
you can't
practical.
do it, if you can't do it, then you go away, run away from that situation. If you are so weak that that situation affects you so much, you run away from that situation. Get down from the train, get into another train. Right?
True.
So that's how we have to learn. If we can't, then what to do? No one will be able to help us.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sorry,
All
Prabhuji,
right.
I have a
Mm.
Before coming to sadhana bhakti, you mentioned about sukriti. I'm just kind of
Sukruti means Ajnat Sukriti. We already discussed about that in Bhagavad Gita. Sukriti, Kriti means act, and Su means nice or good. So a good act. So some unknowingly performed devotional service in the past life. That is called Ajnata Sukriti. So that leads to a chance of executing devotional service in this life, right? Isn't it? Hmm? Okay. Any other question? Mhm. Any other question? Fine. So this chart is clear, right? What we just discussed now. Hmm? Let's read this paragraph. Victor Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. To support this statement, there are many authoritative assertions by the learned scholars of bygone ages. According to their general opinion, a person may become governed by certain convictions derived by his own arguments and decisions. Then another person, who may be a greater logician, will nullify these conclusions and establish another thesis. In this way, the path of argument will never be safe or conclusive. Srimad Bhagavatam recommends, therefore, that one follows in the footsteps of the authorities. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
Okay. Yeah, please read the next paragraph also.
Okay. Here is a general description of devotional service given by Sri Rūpa Gosvāmī in his Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu. Previously, it has been stated that devotional service can be divided into three categories, namely devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of God. Now, Sri Rupa Gosvāmī proposes to describe devotional service in practice. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It's all clear, right? He's going to begin to describe devotional service. So what we'll do is that before we look at the paragraph given by Srila Prabhupada here, we look at the Sanskrit definition of sadhana bhakti as given by Rūpa Gosvāmī in the book Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu. So this is the verse. You can note down if you want. This verse is also given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the verse number is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.105. If you note down, it will be helpful to you. You can later on refer to this in maybe the books you see, you can refer. Yes. Got it? Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.105.
sorry, Prabhuji, just repeat the number, please.
CC Madhya 22.105. कृति साध्या भवेत् साध्य भावासा साधना विधा नित्यसिद्धस्य भावस्य प्राकट्यं हि साध्यता कृति साध्या भवेत् साध्य भावासा साधना विधा नित्यसिद्धस्य भावस्य प्राकट्यं हि साध्यता कृति साध्या भवेत् साध्य भावासा साधना विधा Kriti Sadhya means this bhakti is to be executed by the senses. Okay, Kriti Sadhya. Next, Bhavet. Now, why you should execute sadhana bhakti? For what goal? For what goal? What is the goal of sadhana bhakti? Sadhya means goal. Sadhana means means. Sadhya means goal. So what is the goal of this kriti sadhya or sadhana bhakti? Bhava. Bhava bhakti is the goal of sadhana. Sadhana vidha. That kind of bhakti is called sadhana bhakti. So the definition Rupa Goswami is giving is the bhakti which is done with the intention that I will someday develop bhava bhakti is called sadhana bhakti. Interesting, isn't it? How many of you can actually do sadhana bhakti? Because we don't do sadhana bhakti for that goal. We do sadhana bhakti because we are just told to chant 16 rounds. We are just told to follow the principles. We are just told in the class A, B, C, D, association, books, chanting, diet. And we do that. But do we do it for the goal of developing bhav? No. So Rupa Goswami is saying sadhana bhakti means you do these things. And what we're doing is not wrong. We're doing the right things. Whatever we are supposed to do, we're doing. But do it with the intention of developing bhav. So if I'm chanting 16 rounds because I want to get a good job in America, Guru Maharaj told me chant 16 rounds. I'm chanting 16 rounds. But I want to get a good job in America. Then will I get to bhava anytime? No. Nitya siddhasya bhavasya. Now someone may say, okay, so I have to do sadhana to develop bhav. So how will bhav bhakti develop just because of doing sadhana? So he's saying, Nitya siddhasya bhavasya. That bhav is already there in your heart. Nitya siddhasya bhavasya. That bhav is already in your heart, but it is hiding. And when you do sadhana, prakatyam, it will appear. Iti sadhyata. It will appear in your heart. So have you not read Prabhupada saying, writing or Prabhupada saying in his class that Krishna consciousness is already there in your heart in a dormant stage. You have to just awaken it. An example? If someone has to explain this whole definition using an example, what example will you give? The example which Prabhupada used to give. What? A car is not functioning for ages. It is just, engine is just down, right? You um, put the key in, you try to start the car is not moving. So what do you do then? You get down off the car and you push it. And when you push it, the engine starts. And the car goes, right? So the ability to move is there in the car, but it's stuck. So some external efforts are required, isn't it? Not some, the substantial amount of effort is required. You have to really push the car. If you push the car and the engine is gone bad, will the car start moving on its own? No. Just pushing the car will not do. The engine should also be properly functional, right? Similarly, we have to execute the limbs of sadhana bhakti with the intention of developing bhava bhakti. Then someday that bhava which is in the heart will start getting manifested. Okay. This is a definition of sadhana. You are very very nice, clear, crystal clear definition. So sadhana means, any practice done using body and mind. It's called sadhana. So sadhana bhakti basically means you are engaging your mind and body in some work for Krishna. Because you are working for Krishna, this work will bring the manifestation of bhava in the heart. I'll tell you something very interesting. Is it not your observation that when you actually start doing something for someone, it gives you a chance then to know that person more. And when it gives a chance to you to know that person more, and if that person has good qualities, then you start liking that person in some way. Like to give an example, let's say, just because this name is coming in my mind, let's say someone has never heard of Ratan Tata. You all heard this name, right? Ratan Tata. And that person gets a chance to be an employee in his company. Now that person starts working in that company. And then that person comes to know the principles, the decorum, the care, and everything that Ratan Tata keeps for his employees. What will happen? Slowly and slowly, that person will start developing respect for Ratan Tata. Right? Will start liking Ratan Tata. What will that lead to? That will lead to loyalty in the heart of this person towards Ratan Tata. Correct? And in some time, this loyalty may also turn into some kind of appreciation or some kind of strong likingness that even if this person tells me to sacrifice something from my life, I'll be also ready to do that. I'll work extra hours for this person's satisfaction. This is how it may develop, right? Isn't it? But this kind of attraction and bond, it all started because that person started doing something for Ratan, right or wrong? Similarly, when we start doing something for Krishna, only then there is a chance of development of bhav for Krishna. Otherwise not. It is extreme foolishness when people they say that will not do anything for Krishna and suddenly will be, oh Krishna, I love you. Shamila. Because that love is there inside. It's not that, it's my choice to love Krishna or not. Love for Krishna is in every jiva's heart. It's just that that love is sleeping. And that love will awaken only when I start doing something for Krishna. If I don't start doing anything for Krishna, that love is going to continue to sleep. Is this making sense or no? Right? Understanding? Right? Therefore, it's very essential for someone to begin to work for Krishna, do something for Krishna. And that is called sadhana bhakti. Then one is going to develop that bhav. Therefore, bhav is not mechanical, or bhakti is not mechanical. Now, how does sadhana bhakti lead to bhav bhakti? Because when I do sadhana, my heart gets purified. And because of this purification, that bhav begins to emerge. So when this sadhana is executed with a genuine longingness, that yes, I want to please Krishna, I want to awaken feelings and sentiments for Krishna, then this will lead to such kind of thing. Therefore, it is said that don't do mechanical sadhana, have spiritual aspirations. What is a spiritual aspiration? Ei nivedana dhara sakhir anugata kara seva adhikara de karo nijata. 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 Seva adhikara de karo That aspiration. Give me seva. Seva. Can we say bhakti is a skill? It's a skill. It's bhakti is skill.
It's a skill that we need to master.
Skill is something that you don't know and you have to learn. You don't have and you need to get. Bhakti is something everyone has. It's not a skill. It's not something external which I have to acquire. Therefore, the practice of bhakti is not like a skill. A skill means what? Oh, I practice it nicely, I'll master it. But is bhakti just like that? I will just chant my 16 hours nicely and I'll get Krishna bhakti, I'll get Bhava bhakti. No, it's not a skill. It's not something which you can develop by only practice. Cannot master it just by practice because it has that extra factor. What? The intention, the bhav, that feeling. Therefore, it is not something artificial. And that's why Prabhupada says that it should be done in a way that as a child, with the practice begins to walk. Walking is not, you cannot say walking is a skill. Walking is something natural. You have it, isn't it? Correct? That's not a skill. All right. Let's now read from the purport given by Śrīla Prabhupada. The book. Yes, let's read Sujata Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Practice means employing our senses in some particular type of work. Therefore, devotional service in practice means utilizing our different sensory organs in service to Krishna. Some of the senses are meant for acquiring knowledge and some are meant for executing the conclusions of our thinking, feeling, and willing. So practice means employing both the mind and the senses in practical devotional service. This practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. The walking capacity is there originally in the child, and simply by a little practice, he walks very nicely. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. Even uncivilized men like the aborigines offer their respectful obeisance to something wonderful exhibited by nature's law. And they appreciate that behind some wonderful exhibition or action, there is something supreme. So this consciousness, though lying dormant in those who are materially contaminated, is found in every living entity. And when purified, this is called Krishna consciousness.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's read the next paragraph. Rashmi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I'm reading from the book, Prabhuji. There are certain prescribed methods for employing our senses and mind in such a way that our dormant consciousness for loving Krishna will be invoked, as much as a child with a little practice can begin to walk. One who has no basic walking capacity cannot walk by practice. Similarly, Krishna consciousness cannot be aroused simply by practice. Actually, there is no such practice. When we wish to develop our innate capacity for devotional service, there are certain processes which by our accepting and executing them will cause that dormant capacity to be invoked. Such practice is called sadhana bhakti.
Yes, such practice is called sadhana bhakti. Understood, right? Next paragraph, Manish Prabhu. Reading, Manish Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I was on mute. I was reading by my own.
Okay.
Sorry. Every living entity under the spell of material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. In Śrīmad Bhagavatam, it is said, generally the conditioned soul is mad because he is always engaged in activities that are caused of bondage and suffering. The spirit soul in his original condition is joyful, blissful, internal, and full of knowledge. Only by his implication in material activities has he become miserable, temporary, and full of ignorance. This is due to vikarma. Vikarma means action which should not be done. Therefore, we must practice sadhana bhakti, which means to offer Mangala Arti, deity worship, in the morning, to refrain from certain material activities, to offer obeisances to the spiritual master, and to follow many other rules and regulations that will be discussed here one after another. These practices will help one become cured of madness, as a man's mental disease is cured by the directions of a psychiatrist. So this sadhana bhakti cures the conditional souls of his madness under the spell of Maya, material illusion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is madness, and it has to be cured. Recently, one devotee was asking me that. No, I was not asking, was just expressing that when I came to Krishna consciousness, I used to be so excited about my chanting. And it's not been long, maybe just a year or so. And that devotee is very slack now in Krishna consciousness. So I was wondering that did you understand what is Krishna consciousness? Because this devotee um, does not hear lectures. This devotee does not read Prabhupada books. This devotee hardly comes to the temple. This devotee often eats food which is cooked by a person who is not a devotee. And this devotee, most of the time, chants either on the fingers or on the electronic counter. And then that person says, why am I not getting taste to chant Hare Krishna? Interesting, right? Why interesting? Because we have not understood. We being in material world and living material life means actually we are mad. And this madness will be cured only if we take the medicines nicely. Right, isn't it? But if we are not doing it properly, then how can we even expect that things will go on nicely? Not possible. So this is something very important to realize that the conditioned soul can become cured of this madness only by following the prescriptions very nicely, as the prescriptions are given by a doctor to a patient. Now, Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī is going to talk about the most essential point of sadhana bhakti. What is that most essential point of sadhana bhakti? Let's read this paragraph. Saman. Yes, Sarita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, the Lord knows. Narada Muni mentions this sadhana bhakti in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 32. He says, there to King Yudhishthira, my dear king, one has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means. That is called Krishna consciousness. It is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find the ways and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose. Centered around the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, this chanting has so much power that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. The great saint Ambarisha Maharaja, although a responsible king, fixed his mind on Krishna, and similarly, anyone who tries to fix his mind in this way will very rapidly make progress in successfully reviving his original Krishna consciousness.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So this is something again illustrated here more, that with this example of Ambarish Maharaj, that in sadhana bhakti, the most essential point is your mind has to be fixed on Krishna, right? The reference is given of Narad Muni speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. One has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means, right? That's being told here. One has to fix one mind on Krishna by any means. So thinking of Krishna is the essence of sadhana. And the duty of the guru is to help the disciple do that. Think of Krishna. For thinking of Krishna, we already discussed this in Bhagavad Gita. If you can recall, Śrīla Prabhupada mentions the best way to always think of Krishna is what? To always chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Right? Fine. Always chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Long chapters. This is the problem. These chapters are made in, I don't know, I would say, are given in such a way you cannot complete them in one class also. And if you do divide into two classes, then the classes become very short. Okay, if any question you can ask. We'll do some more of this chapter. We'll not be able to complete it today. So we'll do some more discussion and then we'll go to one or two paragraphs. Yes, Madhumati Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'm wondering, as long as we are connected with the material world, it seems very difficult to get into the stage of sadhana bhakti.
Sorry?
As long as we are connected to the material world, it seems to be very difficult to get into the stage of sadhana bhakti.
Why?
Because the attention is not 100%.
It's okay. So then you are doing sadhana bhakti, but you're not doing completely pure. Right? There are
So
always grades. There are always grades of doing something. No? We may not be completely doing it now, but that doesn't mean that one cannot begin it at all. One can begin it to the level one is capable. Then one will go to the next step, like that. Isn't it?
yeah. So it depends on how much of dedicated I am towards my sadhana bhakti. is what will lead to my bhava stage later. I mean, it depends on how much of dedication I have and how purely I dedicate myself.
Yeah, so that's why now when I come to iskcon, I just got connected. Maybe I've spent a few years. So after that, it takes some time. People take whatever time we are spending now. What is it all for? For slowly and slowly becoming a more nice sadhaka, improve my practice and also improve my intention. So eventually, over a period of time, if the heart is purified, then one will come to that stage of bhav. But yes, bhav is long way to go, right? Bhav is long way to go.
So the feelings and the love that I'm talking about myself, the feelings and the love that I have for Krishna, and when we learn about bhava bhakti, it kind of seems remote. So I guess the best
So
way to
what we
understand.
have is only a semblance of the real feelings. That's what we'll discuss later. It's known as reflection of bhav. Bhava bhas. It's a reflection.
Yeah, to sum it up, I think the best thing is what you said, like the practice of sadhana bhakti with an intention of having the progress towards bhava will eventually give
Yes.
a glimpse of that feeling of bhava bhakti, right?
Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Anything else? No, let's just then discuss one or two more paragraphs. Okay, we'll read this paragraph, someone. Now this sadhana bhakti. Aishwarya Murthy. Sorry, you have to change your display name. I don't recall your new name. Your new name is Achyuta Prayasi. She got initiated a few days back.
Thank you very much. We missed the previous paragraph. Sri Chaitanya.
No, we read it. This
Okay. Now, the sadhana bhakti or practice of devotional service may also be divided into two parts. The first part is called service according to regulative principles. One has to follow these different regulative principles by the order of the spiritual master or the strength of authoritative scriptures, and there can be no question of refusal. That is called Vedi or regulated. One has to do it without argument. Another part of sadhana bhakti is called Raganuga. Raganuga refers to the point at which, by following the regulative principles, one becomes a little more attached to Krishna and executes devotional service out of natural love. For example, a person engaged in devotional service may be ordered to rise early in the morning and offer arati, which is a form of deity worship. In the beginning, by the order of the spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers arati, but then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and prepare different kinds of dresses and thinks of different plans to execute his devotional service nicely. Although it is within the category of practice, this offering of loving service is spontaneous. So the practice of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, can be divided into two parts, namely regulative and spontaneous.
regulative and spontaneous. So what is the regulative bhakti, sadhana bhakti known as? Is known as Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, right? And the spontaneous sadhana bhakti is known as Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Right. Okay, let's read one more paragraph. Yes, Victor Bro, please read this.
Rūpa Gosvāmī defines the first part of devotional practice, or Vaidhi Bhakti, as follows. When there is no attachment or no spontaneous loving service to the Lord, and one is engaged in the service of the Lord simply out of obedience to the order of the spiritual master or in pursuance of the scriptures, such obligatory service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we'll look at the definition later, the Sanskrit one. So, but here very simple words Prabhupada says, when has no no spontaneous loving attraction to the Lord or attachment to the Lord, but one is engaged in the service simply out of obedience to the order of the spiritual master or the scriptures. Such obligatory service is called Vaidhi. Means it's an obligation. Bhakti is an obligation. It's just like, taking medicines. Obligation. Okay. And what to do? If I take the remaining section, it will take 90 minutes or more than that. We don't have so much time, right? That we continue and extend this class for 90 minutes more. No. So, shall we stop? All right, we'll stop here.